Good morning. This is Bill Sullivan with Denodo. I have responsibility for the United States federal business here at Denodo, and it is my privilege to welcome Dave Nelson. Dave is currently the Chief Information Officer and Chief Data Officer at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Dave, first and foremost, thank you for joining us and welcome this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I'm looking forward to this. This is exciting. Thank you.
Do you find that your experience in the private sector allowed you to be more open to adopting the newer technologies at each step along the way? I mean, how did that play off against your decision making as a public sector executive?
It actually did. I learned what I learned in private sector, particularly working with some of the smaller companies and growing smaller companies. You really needed to you had to have a holistic understanding of the challenges,
Mhm.
and you really had to have an awareness of what are the tools available to solve those things. And when you're in the private sector, um, especially in a smaller company, you're you're really struggling at times to keep, it's a pretty strong incentive to keep the company alive
Yeah.
because a lot of times things just shift, and you've got to figure out, maybe this company needs to be something else, and it needs to have or deliver its products in a different way, and everybody's a part of that in a small company. So
Right.
what I learned to do there was build relationships, with the legal people, with the finance people, and understand, how do they make their decisions, and what outcomes are they looking for. I learned even, sales and marketing, and understanding, what are we telling their customers, and how are we putting it, the story out there? What are we building? In fact, when you're on the service end of these companies, a lot of times you're working with the marketing people, and you're actually designing how that product's going to, what it's going to look like, what that customer experience is early in the process. Um, and you just have to have that holistic understanding. And when I came to the government, it was the same thing. I found a lot of um, IT program managers at the time. This is 20 years ago. They were looking at the requirements placed on them for financial reporting, or for building a business case for the program or the investment, or understanding the contracts themselves, and um, what kind of contracting options are open for you, and what are the advantages for all of them. I think federal program managers are much better trained today than maybe when I first joined. But coming in with that, I felt like the government had lots of resources. It just, you needed, and you had really exciting programs and missions to apply those resources to. You just had to really understand and go build those relationships
How to
with.
bring them to bear.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
and, and it's a success for everybody at that point in time,
Yeah.
including the American public. So I thought I just like that approach, that sort of mission feeling. It really resonated with me.
Yeah.
It was more than, let's make sure that we can keep this commercial entity alive.
Yep.
It's our salaries that are coming in, and our, bonuses that might come at the end of the year
Yeah.
depend on it, and I won't have to look for another job. This is a very, very different place to work.
That's something that yeah, I mean, I've worked on both large and companies and small companies. The intriguing question on the private sector is, will spending the money on the adoption of this new technology grow our opportunity or make us more competitive, or will it not? And is the spend equal to the perceived gain, right?
Yes,
And it's
that's
a
how you
very,
make decisions for investments in those technologies in commercial
yeah,
businesses.
it's not unlike that in government, although government doesn't have quite the competitive pressure of six other people in its space, running CMS, for instance. But but you're still looking at it saying, there's if I spend the money on opportunity A, I will not have it spend on opportunity B, and therefore, how do I resource allocate? Which brings, given your background, then it brings a tremendous degree of expertise to government. What would you say to, newly minted CIOs, CDOs, program managers as a result of your experience? I mean, you've touched on a lot of technology and then building a web of relationships across the disciplines in the business, legal, program management, executive management, what have you. Is there, something you would say, hey, if you're just getting started, here are the 3 to 5 things that I would recommend that you as a CIO, CXO do in order to be successful on behalf of your agency, your team, and yourself?
Um, yes, there's a couple things I would say there, and I would go back to what I was saying before. First of all, you need to have a relationship with your CFO. It has to be a good relationship and a strong relationship, and with your whoever your acquisition chief, acquisition officer, or however you're set up. Different agencies are set up differently there. You have to know. You have to know as much as you possibly can about what what they do, and how the agency is actually looked at, and what they're trying to achieve. Um, and you have to have your own plan. My planning. We put together at our agency a strategic IT roadmap, just 2 years ago, um, that actually really helps us prioritize and really think hard about which investments and how to prioritize the investments to meet the goals that we're looking at, 5 to maybe 8 years in the future. Um, and we're really true to that. And through this governance, I talked about the CAO, I talked about the CFO, but really all the program offices, the mission offices across NRC are part of my governance body. We call it an IPAC, but it's really just an IT investment um, body, which really the biggest thing that we do is go through all the budget formulation processes together, but hold each other accountable, making sure that we're meeting all the mission needs or the most important mission needs, making sure that we're aligned on that, and it makes success easier to find, because you're really providing a service. We call them corporate support services in the government, but you're providing a service that's going to enable the mission. You have to have those conversations
Yeah.
all the time, and you need to understand the business. What is the mission? What are we trying to accomplish there? Yeah,
On
it's
that
not.
point, for folks that may have, I've had exposure to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission before, but for those that know nothing other than the name and what it implies, can you give us 30 to 45 seconds on the NRC and kind of
Sure.
what you're charged with as an agency and
Yeah, thank you for giving me that opportunity. I should have started with that. We're a little unique, we're a CFO Act agency, so we're one of the 24, you know, uh, usually larger agencies that report into OMB or into the executive office. And we're right up there with HHS, which is massive, right? Or um, or or Commerce, or any of the other large CFO Act agencies. Um, what's different about us is we're actually a small agency. We, through the Atomic Energy Act, we were broken off from Department of Energy um, back in the 70s, and our sole purpose is to regulate, and to ensure the safety and security of the civilian use of nuclear materials.
Mhm.
So it's not just the nuclear reactors you hear about out there, which are a huge, the largest part of as far as how we actually do our oversight and our licensing is those nuclear plants are a huge part of what we do, and it's really important that we do our work to make sure that they operate in a safe way. But we also take care of regulating the use of medical radioactive materials for
Oh, okay. X-rays, MRIs, that sort of thing. Yeah, okay. I
exactly. And,
did not know that.
Treatments for cancer. There's all kinds of ways that radioactive materials are used, and then they're used for commercial purposes like construction. Even there's measuring tools and different things that are used quite often in those larger construction processes.
Wow.
So there's a lot of smaller licensees that we regulate as well, and how they use those kinds of materials. So we're looking after the safety and security of Americans, and also making sure that they're used in a safe environmental way. So we have to look after the spent materials and things like that too, and make sure that they're we regulate and those are stored in safe manners.
So
So
few agencies outside of the NRC, maybe Department of Energy at the labs, obviously anybody that's handling nuclear weapons. Few agencies have quite such an existential reason for existence as does the NRC, right?
that's yeah, but it's a very focused reason, and it's a very focused mission. Where I was mentioning the other on purpose, I was mentioning the other agencies, large CFO agencies. They have lots of different missions.
Yeah,
HHS alone has, I mean, they have CMS, they have FDA, they have
yeah.
NIH, they have, um, uh, they've got like, I don't know, I don't even remember at this point in time. It's been a while, but there's lots and lots of different sub missions that fall under the HHS
Right.
mission. So CDC too. I didn't even mention those are the
Oh yeah,
large
CDC.
four. So you think about it, and how do you manage a portfolio and the priorities in that sort of environment versus us? We're very, very focused. So and small. So we do have the relationships, we have the conversations, we're aware. I'm aware of what the mission needs. They talk to me regularly, daily even, and we talk about how we can approach challenges.
Right.
So it's a really really focused place to work. So we have more limited resources than those larger uh, agencies, but we can be more focused on what we actually invest in, and we all know what we're trying to accomplish. So it's easy to
So
sort of
so
go in
so
lockstep.
given the focus of the agency, the existential nature of the agency, nobody wants anything to go wrong with a nuclear reactor. Right. So
Nope.
let's just put that on the table. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and I thank you for the time. On behalf of CDO Magazine, we both thank you for your time and your insights. Mostly, I thank you for, as I say, a firm hand on the tiller at what is a critically important element of government. I guess anybody can get in touch with you via the NRC website for any follow-up questions.
Sure.
But thank you, Dave. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure, and I hope you have a great week.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts.
Thank you, sir.
Take care now.
Take care.